In the year 2003, a gang of thieves broke into this treasury, which contained the largest quantity of diamonds in the world. This treasury is located in a small area in Belgium. They call it the Diamond Capital. A small area, but it passes through 80% of the world's diamonds. This area has a special police they call the Diamond Police. The security equipment is insane. The safe in which the diamonds were kept was considered one of the most complex safes in the world and had 10 layers of protection. But one man decides to cut through all these layers and pull off an elaborate and insane robbery. A gang of 5 people, each with a certain skill, and after 2 years of planning and work, carried out the operation and stole diamonds worth $100 million, which is considered the largest diamond theft in history. This theft took place in a city called Antwerp, a city located in Belgium. This city is known as the World Diamond Capital because it is located in a very small area. This area they call the Diamond Area. Imagine that 80% of the diamonds in the whole world pass through this small region, with a value equivalent to 35 billion annually in the region. This was very well secured. Imagine that there is a special police appointed by the Belgian government to this area in particular. They call it the Diamond Police inside this area in a large building. This building is the most important in the area, among all the buildings, next to one street, but on both sides, there are high barriers that can prevent any car from entering or leaving. Do not be surprised if you see people walking in the street carrying bags tied with chains on their hands. There is no one in this area unless he is a diamond dealer or a big buyer, a person who deals with diamonds. This main building is called the Antwerp and the World Diamond Center, and it is the largest building in and inside the region, and you will get the largest diamond companies in the world. Every company has an office in this building, and if you are a merchant or one of the workers in these offices, then in order to enter the building you must have an electronic card. When you enter and scan the card, the computer will record your name at the time of your entry, and the same thing after you exit the building from the outside. Watch a large number of cameras security covering every corner around the building, and of course the same inside the building. Surveillance cameras are present in high density, and these cameras are monitored by guards all the time during working hours underground. The 2 floors, the second basement floor, check the main treasury room. This treasury is considered the most diamond spot on the face of the globe. I mean, if you enter this treasury, you will get all the diamonds. Of course, the diamonds are not built on the ground inside the treasury in the safety deposit boxes. These funds are owned by merchants and owners of diamond companies, and each fund is for a private key. Of course, this key is available to the owner or the tenant. The company or the merchant can store the diamonds in the fund, his money, and be sure that it is impossible for anyone to approach him. This safe is supposed to be impossible to penetrate. Imagine that there were 10 layers of security protecting the treasury. This treasury was an engineering masterpiece. The first layer of protection is the door, the steel that weighs 3 tons and has 30 centimeters in it. The engineer's estimate was that if anyone wanted to penetrate it, he would need at least 12 hours to dig with the electric staircase. Strong and original in all cases, there is a vibration sensor under the door, and if there were any holes or any knocks on the door along, it would trigger the alarm, and there is a locking device with a secret code. This code consists of 4 numbers. Each number consists of 2 digits from 0 to 99. Which means that if you were to adjust a day and it was statistically correct, it is impossible to include it in the code, and if you did not enter the code correctly with the key, it is impossible to enter any, and the safe contains a key after a long key of 30 centimeters. For example, the door box first did not finish its task. A magnetic sensor. If the door or the 2 metal pieces open, the alarm will go off. I mean, even if you have the code and you have the key, and as soon as you open the door, the alarm will trigger. Are we done? No, after we finished. These are just the security layers on the outer door. Inside the safe, there are several sensors, a light sensor, a temperature sensor, and a motion sensor. The light sensor is installed above the ceiling. As for the temperature and motion sensors, they were together in one device that was hung on the wall. Originally, even if you opened the door and the alarm did not work, you would not be able to do anything inside the safe, because these sensors will always hit you, and even if you solve the problem of the sensors, the surveillance cameras in the safe will then be there and the guards will be there. Sitting watching, we assume that the cameras have crossed after the diamonds in front of you. The safe is a safety deposit box, and each box has a special lock with a strong lock that will never break easily. It is crazy today. As a minimum thought, trying to steal this place. Let's get to know him. This man's name is Leonardo. Interpetroleum is an Italian man. The most important feature of this Leonardo is his ability to dazzle at the attraction of the same skill that you get at the swindlers. Mark appreciates his personality and makes you feel comfortable with a friend, and then you will take care, and when you are attentive, he will surprise the best of people. Once upon a time, he said in one letter that I was born to be a thief. Indeed, when he was 19 years old, he began stealing luxury sports cars. This was his beginnings. And after a few years, he changed from stealing cars to stealing diamonds because we consider it a more profitable goal. It means that diamonds are light and small, making it easier for one to obtain an identity, and at the same time, their value is high. On top of this, it is difficult for him to track down cars, and from the beginnings of his diamond theft, he developed a passion for jewelry, and it turned out that he had a talent in this field. He was able to design jewelry very beautifully in the beloved, and he went and opened a jewelry store for you because he was really enjoying the field, and then someone would have a network of acquaintances, whether in the legal world or in the illegal world, and this thing would facilitate the sale of stolen diamonds on the black market. Just imagine, once upon a time, one of Leonardo's stores was robbed. The thief stole the thief and stole his hit with a heavy blow, and it was a great loss. He was angry and wanted to make up for the loss in any way. Most likely, this is the thing that gave him the motive to think of stealing the World Diamond Center in Belgium, which originally changed the wealth that he could obtain. This robbery of the center is like the legendary work that immortalized his name as one of the greatest thieves, as this gives more motivation after making him excited. Of course, it is not useful to go along with a soul and try to penetrate the building and the treasury, and he does not know anything about them. He must study, plan, and know everything before he starts. Leonardo made a very bold move. He went to the Diamond Center, this large building, and told them that he is a diamond dealer and wanted to rent an office in the building. The woman who held the position of the building manager did not suspected him, and he simply stripped the office, and Leonardo now has this electronic card that allows him to enter and leave the building whenever he wants in the morning at night because you have a card so you can enter. These words were in the year 2000, that is, 3 years ago, when the operation was carried out. I mean, your imagination is normal. A line was prepared for this operation for 3 years. Since then, he became an official tenant in the building, so he has the right after renting a safety deposit box in the safe. After renting the safe, he has the authority to enter the safe. Anyone who has a box in the safe can go downstairs, just show the card of the guard who watches with the security camera, and the guard, once he sees you and confirms your identity, makes you enter normally, and the big safe door is open during official working hours. In a small second door they call the day door. This door, which closes, opens when the customer enters and exits the safe, meaning not everyone, and the word of the customer goes to open the large door of the safe, and then mentions what comes out. No, this large door remains open all day long. You enter with your key, so you open a box for you and finish your things, whether you want to take from the box or put in it, and the guard, of course, watches you from the camera inside the safe, and there is a second armed guard standing outside the door of the safe, but no one enters with you to give you your privacy. Every time Leonardo went to the treasury, he would check the security means in it, and he had a bag right there, as there was a camera coming out from its owner, and this camera kept filming what was inside the treasury, so he used the camera to photograph every corner of the treasury. Imagine sensors, surveillance cameras, and all the second security means, and Leonardo kept repeating these visits to the treasury, and each visit collected more information. Leonardo did not move in implementing his plan until after he had collected all the information he needed, and he did not know the shape of his team until the summer of the year 2002. I mean, about 8 months before the operation, in order to form his team, he returned to the original city, a city called Heritage, Italy. This city was called in the 90s the City of Thieves because it used to expel many thieves, members of gangs and thieves, and there was an acquaintance and a network between thieves. These were not working together as one entity. The crime gang is organized, but they always cooperate with each other when it is in a process that requires different skills, because each one of them has certain skills, so they used to benefit from each other's experiences. The first person who communicated, Leonardo, was Fernando's name in Netto. They called him the Monster, and by the way, each of them has a special nickname, a title related to his skill in the Monster. The Monster to join him is just a surprise because the amount of diamonds in the treasury is a monster because, of course, you have to penetrate the cell. This complex Zane needs more than just muscles, it needs a calf. And here comes the role of the second person who joined Leonardo to the gang, whose name was Elliot, and his title was the Genius. His task will be to hack into electronic systems. This skill he acquired from his work in a business specialized in providing security equipment and devices from surveillance, so he understood these matters and was the ideal person for this task. Leonardo, even after he recruited these two people, was after that in things for a while. What happened to her solution after that in layers of protection, which made him think about how to penetrate it, so he was traveling at least once a month to the capital of diamonds. The safe used to open at 7, and of course he could enter the building at any time he wanted, as he rented an office. Sometimes he would go to the treasury room before 7 o'clock, before it opened, and sit there waiting for the guards to open. He acted as if he had something urgent to do, so he came early and needed to open a box, so he would find and see the opening process. The treasury with eyes sees the guards opening. Of course, the guards certainly didn't let me see the code, but at least we could see the long key, the key that was 30 centimeters long. Of course, Leonardo had to find a way to copy the key, and this would be one of the most difficult challenges in the whole fictitious process. It is the role of the fourth member of the gang, the man to seize the king of the keys, and this is all that is known about him. We do not know his name or his true appearance. All we know is that someone specializes in keys. At this stage of the plan, they needed the building plans because it would greatly help them to understand the layout of the building and determine for themselves a way to reach the treasury. The Euro also went to the manager of the building and told her that he wanted to expand. I mean, he rented one office and his company is growing, so he thinks of taking more offices and asking them. So if it is possible that they provide the building plans in order to determine the appropriate way, the expansion of the office is not surprising. The manager did not just agree and gave her the floor plans. Treasury. Of course, these plans do not reveal any security systems, but it still means revealing spaces, roads and passages, and it will help them greatly, and this was a human security mistake on the part of the director. And what helped him was Leonardo's skill and ability to dazzle and the attractiveness of his personality, and they're obtaining the plans that let them discover the best possible path they enter into the building and discover the way. They can enter the building through the garage without what they need. They go through a checkpoint. They can enter through a garage door designated for cars located on the side street. They do not have to walk on the main street that has high barriers. But of course, these garage doors are protected by security systems. A wish will be backed up. After this stage of the plan, Leonardo knew they needed a fifth member. This member will be their leg, and the choice fell on a person Leonardo trusts greatly, because they hired a man named Pietro Cavanaugh, who they called the Secret, and thus the gang members became 5, and we knew the mission of each one of them. Of course, Leonardo goes to the building all the time from time to time and tries to enter places where he is not supposed to enter from a security point of view, for example the guard's room, but his style and attractive personality that we talked about have a relationship with the guards and the workers wanting to be their friend, so he sometimes enters the control room that he is not supposed to enter. He understands the guard system and routine and how they are monitored through cameras, and the big discovery he discovered is that they were watching at night. They were watching the working hours when the treasury was open, but after they closed at night after what came, no one would watch the cameras running and recording, but no one watching it because they were confident in the security systems protecting the treasury. They were confident that someone could bypass the systems and trigger the alarm. After the gang consulted with each other, they knew that this process had to be completed in one night. The time window they have is about 5 hours, but if it takes more time, they expose themselves to danger while being exposed. How will they be able to? They bypass all these security systems quickly without wasting their valuable time. Here came a genius decision. He was trying to infiltrate the storage room with his spirit and disable some security systems 5 days before the night of the robbery. Simply imagine the genius using Leonardo's card to enter the building disguised as a worker. When he arrived at the building, he said that he had a job in Leonardo's office, and that he was an employee in order to settle the work for him. They prevented them from the card behind, and they were a work paper or a fake invoice. Of course, he entered at night. So be careful. I saw Almasai. They did not suspect the genius, and they made him enter as normal, since he had a card. Anyone who could enter would go to the office to finish his work and leave, but the genius was not going. The genius office was the target of the treasury room, and there was nothing to prevent him from going downstairs on the floor in the treasury, so he entered the treasury room as normal. Since the guards were not watching the security cameras, it is night time in the beloved. Take his comfort in all his conditions. First of all, cover the surveillance cameras so that they do not hunt or record. This camera was designed by himself, and the aim of it is that they discover the code of the safe that the guards use to open. The camera will photograph the guard the next morning when he comes and opens the safe and enters the code. After the king of the keys, he thinks that he can copy the key through the footage that the camera takes, because he is the same guard who collects the key. And he enters into the safe. The camera will pick up the key and the king of the keys, and he will remove the key from the shot. That in and of itself is a crazy thing. The next step was to disable the sensor or the magnetic sensor. He told you that there is a magnetic sensor that consists of 2 metal pieces located on the safe in the corner. If the safe door was opened and the 2 pieces separated from each other, the alarm would work automatically. The method in which the genius disabled the magnetic sensor made Jed worthy of the title of the one who made an aluminum plate and arranged it on the 2 pieces, thus fixing the 2 pieces together with this plate, and then he was able to simply dismantle the vacuum of these 2 magnetic pieces and remove them from their place without separating from each other. Consequently, the magnetic field between them was interrupted, so the alarm did not work. I mean, if it turned out that he was aware of some of them being separated, the alarm would not work. When the genius made sure of the thing, he returned the 2 pieces. He was not fixing them again, and now he knew that it was the night of the theft. He would be able to easily remove the 2 pieces without triggering the alarm. The next one was that he knows the frequency that opens the garage door, asking them through the blueprints. They got a garage door that leads into the building from a side street. This door opens with a certain frequency. And these frequencies are difficult to know, but the genius is very connected to the device that controls it. He opened the door, and from his experience in electronics and security devices, he began to know this hesitation, which when he tells you that its protector is its thief. I mean, when doing business, he proves safety devices to people, and through his experience in this field, he can penetrate these security devices. And he installed a small camera so that they could know the code of the safe and the shape of the key, and he knew how to disable the 2 magnetic pieces, and he knew the special frequency. The garage door is private and everything on it. The important thing after that was the disruption. The sensors inside the safe. We said before that there was a light sensor hanging on the ceiling and a motion and temperature sensor hanging on the wall inside the safe, and the gang, a sensor similar to this one, was brought in the safe, and they began to examine and do their experiments on it, and they knew that if they covered the device with a carton at night, it would lead to blocking waves the sensor. Therefore, the device would be as if it was there, and it would malfunction. But the problem is that if it entered the safe before they could give the device in the Philippine carton, the device would detect it and trigger the alarm. They needed a way to give the device before they entered the safe, or at least temporarily reduce its efficiency in order to what revealed them the first time they entered. This task was on Leonardo the Mastermind, because he was the only one who could enter the treasury officially, so was a process necessary to take place at a time when the treasury is open, meaning the working time. This is the only solution. Of course, the problem is that the guards' working hours were then monitored by cameras. What happened was that on the morning of the day before the day of the operation, the date of February 14, 2003, Leonardo went to the building as usual and entered using his card. Then he went and entered the treasury. He showed the guards his card and entered as usual. But this time, he was hiding a sleeve that I replaced with a hairspray, so after he entered the safe and went to his box, the sensor was the same side of him expanding like the movement of the others. When one is tired and wants to spray the sensor with steam, of course, he tried to show the movement normally, but the guard who was watching felt that something wrong was happening, so he got out of the observer's room and went to the safe to see the person sitting in it. But when he arrived with Leonardo, he was the same. He arranges his hair in a way that means his words and his manner is very convincing the guard that nothing happened. Suddenly, he removes himself from the situation. The guard let him go normally. Now, after Leonardo sprayed hairspray on the sensor, the efficiency of the device became very weak. The device did not completely fail, but it would not work as required, and this thing would give them the opportunity they need to cover themselves in the cork carton before it was discovered. Thus, all the preparations for the operation were completed that night. For the night of the robbery tour, the gang gathered together in Leonardo's apartment. The apartment located in Antwerp, the diamond capital. They sat together and ate Italian food. And then they made sure of all their preparations and tools. And they were very enthusiastic about the process. The next day was the expected day, which was on Saturday the 15th of February, year 2003. That night, the spy Pietro, whose job it was to be in charge of driving, he drives them to a building and sees the side road that will lead them to the garage door. Through the frequency discovered by the genius, they were able to open the door with ease and entered their car into the building from the garage. Then they will have several doors that they must pass through in order to reach the treasury, and these doors, of course, are closed, but one of the things that is the gang, and they have door locks similar to the ones they use in most of the doors of the building. In front of them, performing one after the other, they made their way between the corridors, and then from the stairs, until they reached the storage room, and when they returned, the real work began. First of all, they covered the security cameras in the room. What they want cameras record who settle. The next step was to get rid of the two magnetic pieces that would fire if separated. This is, like we said, genius. We were able to settle an aluminum scandal, fix it in the two pieces, unscrew the screws, and remove the two pieces in their place without separating them from each other, just like the night he infiltrated with the spirit, when the first layer of protection collapsed. The second step is that they enter the symbol, and this was the task of the symbol monster. Of course, they were able to obtain it through the camera that the genius installed. On the night their fate slipped, they filmed the guards entering the monster symbol. He entered the code, which consisted of 4 digits and 2 digits each. Of course, if the code is entered correctly, the hole through which they enter the key will open. After the code was entered correctly, the hole opened. Then, they tried the key that the King of Keys made. The long key, of course, as we said, the King of Keys tried to copy this key through the footage filmed by the camera mounted by the genius, and something I mean feels that it is supposed to be almost impossible or even impossible. But the King of the Keys was confident of himself, so the key entered the slot, but he did not enter the copy of the key. What was the original key card? Imagine then, after all this key, what was the solution? Then, they get off the operation and go home. Leonardo was not the mastermind in vain, and fortunately he was an eye-opener to all the details, and I told you he kept getting close to the guards and tried to be present sometimes at the opening and closing times of the treasury in order to see their eyes at night. Note that the guards don't keep the key in a mysterious location, but rather in a regular locker in an adjacent room. They simply went and broke this safe and took out the original key, and this was one of the heinous security mistakes that Leonardo was able to take advantage of, and of course he would not have discovered it if he had not lost all that time. He saw and discovered the place, so they opened it. They were able to open the safe door, but before they opened, they needed to do something, which is that they go around the doors in the room because of the light sensor inside the safe. What raises the alarm about information that has been confirmed is that they may have used night vision goggles, and adaptation means that they see what is inside. The important thing is that they opened the safe door, and then the inner day door opened, and the first one to enter was the beast, who was the first of them to enter simply and quietly. They were giving him a booklet on the light sensor located in the ceiling. The next step was to disable the movement and temperature sensor that is fixed to the wall with hairspray to spray on Leonardo. It is supposed to disable the efficiency of the device and make their response to heat slower, but their movement in the safe and the increase in the temperature of the place can be sensed at any moment and trigger the alarm. Then, they should give this device the cork carton that they brought with them slowly and quietly. They used a stick of variable length, such as a selfie stick, and they tied a cork carton at the end of it, and slowly tried it from the sensor that they did not cover, and then one of them advanced and fixed it completely away from it, and then they became sure that they covered it on all sides, and then it was like cardboard in the wall, and thus it would be less protection for the treasury completely. The last step in order to get the loot is to break the locks of the safe deposit boxes. The treasury contained 190 chests. Of course, Leonardo was an expert in boxes. Everything in the treasury opened his hopeful sustenance chest, and he knew all his weaknesses. Although the box lock was strong, it was supported from behind a thinly cut plastic piece in the headband. Design a device or tool that mounts directly onto the lockbox. And they were determined on the dimensions of the box exactly because Leonardo had calculated everything, so they put this tool on the box. And then the pliers hold on the lock and they turn the screw so soft that the tension force breaks it. In this way, they broke the locks of the boxes, and one saw the second and returned inside these boxes, and they obtained the types of precious spoils, cash, coins, and jewelry. Of course, the most important thing is that the diamonds were the biggest booty, so they took everything they could and they loved their power. The sweet thing for them is that these diamonds, just a small handful in your hand, are worth millions, which means that the saying of what is light in weight and expensive is perfectly applicable to it. They are tired of seeing all of them with these diamonds, and he tells you that he estimates the size of the stolen dead to be $1 million, which is considered the largest robbery of a treasury in history, and behind your mind, he talks about the year 2003, meaning the value of money today, the amount will be greater, so they kept collecting diamonds, gold, and jewelry, the softest of their possessions, and even left behind a large amount of the boxes when they opened them. They opened almost 100 boxes out of 190. They took a lot, but how much greed can be given to them and let the weight increase on them, then the time has come to leave, but before they get out, they must get rid of any evidence behind them, so they went to the security or surveillance room in which the guards keep the tapes of surveillance camera recordings, and take with them all the tapes that were recorded during the past week. We are talking about the tapes of all the cameras in the entire building. For example, until the night when a genius came en route to disable the security systems. They took his recordings so that the police would not return these recordings and know their identity and link them to the operation. This was a smart move on their part. He was waiting for them in the car, so he put all their belongings in the booty and got into the car and moved outside the building along the lane. This moment, the process took about 5.5 hours, and at 6 o'clock in the morning he arrived at Leonardo's apartment in the apartment he had in the city, and there when they went down they saw the spoils in front of them. Feelings were like the confusion of enthusiasm and joy, but at the same time, fear and anticipation. They knew they were carrying out the largest robbery in history. A process that people will keep talking about for years and years, so the diamonds are gone. Money, jewelry. At that time, they counted the spoils and began to divide what was among them, and each of them took his share. The next step was to clean the apartment and get rid of anything in it that could lead to them, because the police might search the apartment one day and they don't know anything. It was one of the things he was very keen on. They take all their tours with them because their embassy has their fingerprints and their business debt, so you can lead them sooner or later, so they tried to clean in a corner of the apartment what they wanted, leaving any evidence behind them. The next step was for them to come out of Belgium because, of course, the police started chasing a big wish in order to get them, and the good thing for them is that their country, Italy, did not have an extradition treaty with Belgium, even if the Belgian authorities solved the case and knew their identity. Italy does not hand over its citizens to be tried in Belgium, or at least this is what they were expecting on the night of that day, which is Sunday, the 16th of February 2003. The day after the operation, the gang decided to separate from each other, each one returning to Italy individually so as not to arouse suspicions on themselves. But there was one person who stayed together and who were Leonardo the leader and Peter the speedy who was driving the car on these two. They took their share of the loot and put it in the car. And they took away the rubbish they collected from the apartment. Their job was to get rid of her. And that night, while they were driving on the petrol highway, signs of nervousness appeared on him, and he was always looking at the mirrors of the car, and he felt as if someone sat down with one of them and started arguing about Leonardo and saying, "We have to stop and get rid of the rubbish immediately. We must dispose of the rubbish in a suitable place. Let's walk. We're not sure that we've actually got a suitable place to appreciate anywhere." But the rapid remained writing his head and say, "No, what I appreciate. I'm afraid we need to get rid of the junk quickly." Leonardo knew that this tension could lead him to shrewdly walk on the street, which was almost isolated. It was in a roadside forest. Florence said, "That's it, we'll stop here and get rid of the rubbish in this forest." So he stopped on the side of the road and Leonardo said, "The quick one, you are waiting in the car. I will get out and turn around in a suitable place where we throw rubbish." And its rapid movement remained sitting in the car, while Leonardo went down and spinning among the trees. Leonardo got a perfect place. Secluded spot. Depth of the forest. But at the same time, this speedy man was sitting in the car, and on his nerves and tension, he reached a state of anxiety. The fear that he could not bear, so he got out of the car, took the rubbish, and started throwing it off the bridge. The bridge near which their car was parked means that it was thrown almost beside the street, a place that is never isolated. When Leonardo came back, the horror of the scene made him throw rubbish, and he went and ran on him and said, "Brave and crazy in me." Leonardo realizes it is a disaster museum surveillance tapes related to trees. Papers and documents on the ground. Then Leonardo, after seeing this scene, knew God that they could collect the things again, so all that he can settle is to help throw the rubbish and distribute it more, and he convinced himself that most likely someone will get it in all cases, and if he gets it, it will be after a long time, after all something worn and crumbled. That's it, he threw everything that real, and then they continued on their way to Italy, and they were spoiled. Someone may ask, well, they don't search the borders and get the diamonds. The answer is no. Because the European countries that are in the Schengen area, the borders between them are open, there are no checkpoints. On the day after that, which is Monday, February 17, 2003, the employees returned to work after the weekend vacation, and when the guard responsible for opening the safe came to an opening, he found the feet of the safe upside down from the inside. The boxes are broken and the floor is full of items, leftover documents, and a lot of jewelry for the thieves, who could not take it with them at all. Of course they called the Diamond Police. The police of the small area, this police began their freedoms along, and if there is a side that wants them to investigate theft like this, they are literally the Diamond Police. This type of crime is their specialty. As soon as they arrived at the treasury and began to examine it, they had a sure belief that this is an internal process. The person responsible for it entered the treasury before and got acquainted with the building and all the security equipment in it, because all layers of security were disabled and bypassed. Then, when they started looking for the police to record surveillance cameras did not happen, so they knew that they were dealing with cautious criminals, but at the same time that the investigations were running, there was an old retired man walking in the forest road, the same forest in which Leonardo's highway threw garbage. This man used to like to walk in nature among the trees, which he loves in the area in particular. He was walking and saw a pile of rubbish and nerves in front of him. Why is that? People love nature and throw accusations here, but Hawk is contemplating the rubbish. He saw some papers with the name Antwerp International Diamond Center on them. Be surprised and remember me before the morning comes. His wife told about a large theft of diamonds that took place in the building. Suddenly, he was flipping through the items with this much more rubbish. And good flowers, these have important things, and their presence, especially today, for what he is about. So he called the police and informed them of the matter. The investigators of the site never examined the rubbish and described what was in it, and they were amazed at the things that happened. Of course, they immediately knew that this rubbish belonged to the thieves, because they obtained surveillance cameras. Unfortunately, the tapes were ruined, and they could not be used. The second thing they got were small stones. These gemstones are found in jewelry around large gemstones. Putting these stones in the pile because they will be important in 2 dimensions. The third thing he got was a business card to play with his name and number on it and everything they needed to get it to him, and on top of it he got a bill or a piece of paper. Then the fake work allowed Suha to enter the building before the theft, under the pretext that he was assigned to work in Leonardo's office. Then, through this paper, they were able to link the theft. Leonardo, who was renting the office in the building and knowing his identity, made him delve deeper into searching for more. He opened the records he had and began to go through them, and during their search they discovered that for the past 3 years the tenant of an office in the building was not once a business or business deal. They did not have any records of a business deal. The text was not broken, it was in the case of thieves, it was in the box. Nothing really warned them. This was a stupid move on their part. They are the nut of Leonardo's chest and salvation. They became convinced that there was nothing to do with theft. But the problem is that all they have is circumstantial evidence. And as I told him now, in his home city of Toronto in Italy and Belgium do not even have an extradition treaty between them. The investigators checked out and reached a dead end, but then a week later something happened that they were expecting. Leonardo began to feel impenetrable, and his sense of self-confidence transformed into arrogance. Imagine he was confident. They did not leave any trace behind them, to the extent that he returned to the city of Antwerp himself. Back again. He decided that the situation was general and returned to an institute he participated in. The purpose of the visit was to get rid of all the threads that he might have left behind, especially any items in the apartment or in the office he rented. This time, he came with his family, his wife and son, and claimed the right of his wife and son in the apartment and asked them to get rid of everything. Anything they can throw in the trash they go out and throw. As for him, he went out and went to a building, so he entered the building with a pledge card, as if nothing had happened to the guard. He looked at and did not believe this. The administration of the building immediately called the police, and when they arrived, the manager of the building confronted Leonardo and sat talking to him, trying to work for them, and they prayed the same. The manager he was playing on, now the magic has turned on the magician, and she is the one who was playing on him. Suddenly, the Diamond Police investigators arrived, and when Leonardo saw his heart pounded, he realized that this time he played on him, although inside himself he knew that he had been exposed, but after a mistake he tries to play the role of the innocent. The detectives wanted to ask about the location of his apartment, and Leonardo tried either to ask them because his wife and son were after them, who were cleaning the apartment, or to get rid of her things. But after a period of conversation and pressure on him, he had to tell them the address, as they were pressuring him in the language of a police team to move towards his apartment along. When the police team arrived at the apartment, they saw his wife and son pulling a mattress on the stairs. They were spraying the apartment and wanted to throw it away. They stopped half of the operation, and after the police searched the apartment, they obtained several important evidence, including the cell phones of the man. They confirmed that this chip was in the Diamond building at the time of the operation, through the telecommunications company. The second thing they got were small stones, the stones that adorn the jewelry like the ones they got in the place where they were thrown in the rubbish, and they forced them to fold them together. Now, after the evidence became clear and strong, Leonardo became under the grip of the police. The Belgian authorities contacted the Italian authorities and asked them to cooperate with them. The Italian authorities agreed. The Italian police raided Leonardo's house in the city of Turin in Italy, and after the search they found inside the house a small safe, and inside this safe a group of 17 diamonds were found, and after they got one diamond and an envelope happened and it had a serial number on it, and they estimated after that they confirmed through this number that it was in the safe diamond building. This means that the diamonds were stolen, so this became conclusive evidence that Leonardo was involved in the operation. Urgent. He laughs. The search warrant used by the Italian police was only for weapons. Weapons-only suspects were legally unable to confiscate anything other than weapons. Who knows, they confiscate these stolen diamonds. By the way, this is the last time the authorities, whether Italian or Belgian, will see anything of the loot, regardless. Leonardo was arrested in Belgium and a very strong case was built against him, but all of this refused to be answered by his companions, but in any case the evidence that the police had was abundant. All the gang members left behind DNA traces and documents revealing their identities. And with us, as we said, there is no extradition treaty between Italy and Belgium, but the Italian authorities were very cooperative and arrested them and chose to extradite them to Belgium in all cases, so the genius Lori, Fernando the Beast, and Peter the Speedy were arrested. The only one who was not arrested and did not know his name or identity until now was the King of the Keys. His identity remained a mystery, but evidence of religion confirmed his presence in the treasury. But then listen, their sentences are the part that unites the penalties for theft crimes in Belgian laws. It is a farce, no matter who you stole, whether you stole an apple or $1 billion. If the theft took place without violence, your punishment will be very easy. The maximum penalty you can get is 5 years, but this is the law that they have, so imagine Leonardo, the mastermind would have taken only 5 years, which is the maximum period. As for the remaining 3, each of them took 6 months, and this is all always coming back and nothing from what they stole all seasons. This huge booty, estimated at $100 million, remained with them, something strange. By God, at least they understood that they would return even a small part of what they stole, but the booty remained with them to spend their rule within the year 2008-2009. All of them were out of prison, and each one was living his life comfortably with the wealth he acquired. This is a picture of Leonardo, I think from the year 2017, but in general, it seems that they used this wealth to live a private life away from view because there is not much information or pictures about them or where they are now. This is amazing, I swear I'm looking. And he continued in the story, after what I knew from Apple's catch, I did not expect this end, and I think it is the same thing, but this is what happened, and we will not have reached the end of our story if you enjoyed it, and I am sure that you did. Since you arrived in Hania, let me Blake Kareem. We start, once you are down, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell button, and these are some awesome clips that you can enjoy.